Good evening. We're ready to begin. This Planning Commission is called to order. This meeting has been properly noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law. These proceedings are being video recorded as well as presented live on KCLV, Cable Channel 2. You can also watch this meeting live on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV on the Go Vegas app. The Planning Commission meeting, as well as all other KCLV programming, can be viewed on the internet at www.kclv.tv/live. The proceedings will be rebroadcast on KCLV and the web the Saturday after the meeting at 10 a.m., Monday at midnight, and the following Tuesday at 6 p.m. Would everybody please stand for the pledge? God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Acting Chair Schlottman.
Present.
Vice Chair Cherry.
Present.
Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Rogan.
Present.
Commissioner Walsh.
Present.
Commissioner Kasama.
Present.
Commissioner Taylor.
Present.
Thank you.
I call your attention to the information printed in the agenda concerning our actions and the appeal and review process if appropriate. Please read this carefully, and if you have any questions, staff is available. Also, the second page of our agenda contains our rules of conduct. We appreciate you adhering to these rules so we could have a smooth meeting. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come to the podium, give your name for the record. The amount of discussion, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. All right. Is there anybody that wants to be heard under? Please give us your name and address for the record.
My name is John Abel, Police Officer John Abel. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Las Vegas Police Protective Association. The association represents every Metro officer in the Valley. Our address is 9330 West Lake Mead, Las Vegas, Nevada 89134. I draw your attention to item number 11, the special use permit for Adorn Events. Just want to say that we are in full support of their special use liquor license, I believe it is. They are great neighbors. They have a beautiful facility, and they've been our neighbors for a couple of years, and they're very friendly, and their venue is welcome in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Anyone else wanting to be heard, please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Eleanor Snyder. I reside at 209 South Torrey Pines Drive, Las Vegas, Nevada, and I am here with neighbors from 201 through 221 regarding the proposed flip of Garside Frank F. Jr. Middle School. And we're opposed to areas in regards to safety concerns regarding traffic, buses, and variances that are requested in item 18.
This is something that's going to be heard tonight.
Yes,
We will open the public comment during that section. Are you going to be here throughout the course of the evening?
Yes, we were told that if we came and submitted an opposition, that it could be removed from the one vote portion of tonight's meeting.
And that's item
Number 18.
number 18.
So that we have time to discuss with the development and the school district our concerns.
Okay. We will take that into consideration here in one moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing and move on. Vice Chair, is there a motion to approve the Planning Commission minutes of July 25th, 2023?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Please cast your vote.
Commissioner Rogan, is that a yes?
I'll abstain. I wasn't present at that meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, and that motion carries. Let's move on to our housekeeping items. Are there any items commissioner, staff, applicants, or members of the public would like to pull forward for action?
Mr. Chairman, Nicole Edos, Community Development Coordinator for the record, and we have a few housekeeping items. Staff is requesting for item number 23-0052-VAR2 to be stricken, as revised plans eliminated the need for this variance application. The applicant is requesting to table item number 21, project number 23-0052. The applicant is requesting to hold item number 30, project number 23-0265-SUP1 to the October 10th Planning Commission meeting, and this is the applicant's first request. And the applicant is requesting to hold item number 35, project number 23-0344-VAR1 to the September 12th Planning Commission meeting, and this is the applicant's first request. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on any of these items? If yes, please come forward. Seeing none. Yes. Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Tashika Lawson. I live at 9725 Manheim Lane, Las Vegas, Nevada. And I wanted to speak on item number 21.
Okay. I guess we can, that one's going to be stricken from our agenda. Well, I guess only 21D is going to be stricken. We'll still hear the rest of that item tonight.
But Chairman, 21 in itself has been tabled. So what happened was 21D was stricken by staff, and then there was a request by the applicant to table the item, which means it comes off the agenda.
Could you please repeat your request?
My name is Tashika Lawson, 9725 Manheim Lane. I'd like to discuss item number 21, which is the Harlem Nights proposal for a 60-story building in the historic West Side.
Okay, at this time, the discussion's limited to if we're tabling this particular item or not. So at this time, we're not discussing this particular item. If we do hear this item tonight, then we will open up a public hearing on this.
Okay, then I'll wait until the end.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair?
Through the chair, I'll read the 4 items separately. 21A through H, 230052, applicant request to be tabled. 21D, 230052 VAR, this item to be stricken. Item number 30, 230265 SUP, to be held in abeyance until the October 10th, 2023 meeting. And item number 35 to be 230344 VAR1 to be held in abeyance until the September 12th, 2023 meeting. Motion's on the floor.
Motion's on the floor. Please cast your vote.
I'll vote aye.
Thank you. And that motion carries. And if you do have comments at the end of the meeting, we'll have a public comment portion where you can come up and make comments on that particular item. Thank you. Moving on to consent agenda items. Consent items are considered routine by the Planning Commission, may be enacted by one motion. However, any item may be discussed if a commission member or applicant so desires. Are there any applicants or members of the public which want to be heard on any of the consent agenda items? Seeing none, Vice Chair?
Motion to approve the consent items.
Motion's on the floor to approve consent.
Aye.
And that motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, item number 7 is final action unless appealed to the clerk in 7 days, and items 8 and 9 are final action tonight unless appealed to the clerk within 10 days.
Thank you. Moving on to the one motion, one vote portion of this agenda. The following items are considered routine and could be considered in one motion, one vote. All items with a staff recommendation of approval. All public hearing and non-public hearings will be opened at one time. Any person representing an application or member of the public or member of the Planning Commission not in agreement with the conditions and all standard conditions for the application recommended by staff should request to have that item removed from this part of the agenda. Item number 10 is 23-0213, applicant Marissa Pretkus, owner Sticky 4 LLC for possible action on following land use entitlement project requests at 1508 South Main Street, Ward 3. 10A is abeyance 23-0213 SUP1 for proposed 2,032 square foot alcohol on-premise full use. 10B is abeyance 23-0213 SUP2 for proposed gaming establishment restricted use 1 to 5 machines. 11 is 23-0258 SUP1, applicant Adorn Events LLC, owner Sanarp Trust for possible action on a land use entitlement project request for a proposed 8,745 square foot pub, bar, and lounge at 9555 Del Webb Boulevard, Ward 4. 12 is 23-0271 SUP1, applicant Sure Thing LLC, owner Mission Springs Properties, for possible action on a land use entitlement project request for proposed 1,180 square foot alcohol on-premise beer wine use at 1110 Fremont Street, Ward 3. 13 is 23-0277 VAC1, owner is GSN Durango LP, for possible action on a land use entitlement project request for a petition to vacate a portion of the public drainage easement and U.S. government patent easements generally located at the northeast corner of Durango Drive and Giuliano Road. 14 is 23-0285 VAC1, applicant owner Northland NV LLC, for possible action on a land use entitlement project request for a petition to vacate a portion of the public drainage easement at 8881 North Sky Canyon Park Drive. 15 is 23-0287 SUP1, applicant Sandra Alcaraz and Ivan Lemus, owner is David Lee Phillips, for possible action on a land use entitlement project request for a proposed bail bond service use at 317 Garces Avenue, Suite A. 16 is 23-0289. Applicant owner, the Howard Uses Company, LLC, for possible action on the following land use entitlement project request at the northeast corner of Far Hills Drive and Clark County 215. 16A, 23-0289, MOD1, for proposed modifications to the Summerlin West Village 21 Development Plan, 319.75 acres. 16B is 23-0289, TMP1, for 15-lot parent tentative map for Summerlin West Village 21, 91.07 acres. 17 is 23-0292, SUP1, applicant Charles Trujillo, owner NB Cubed LLC, for possible action on a land use entitlement project request for a proposed tattoo parlor, body piercing studio use at 3441 West Sahara Avenue, Suite B1. 18 is 23-0301, applicant Clark County School District Facility Services, owner School Board of Trustees, for possible action on the following land use entitlement project request at 300 South Torrey Pines Drive. 18A is 23-0301, VAR1, to allow deviations from Title 19.10 CV development standards. 18B is 23-0301, VAR2, to allow a modified shared use trail design along Torrey Pines Drive between Celeste Avenue and Hyde Avenue. 18C is 23-0301, SDR1, for a proposed two-story, 148,380 square foot primary public school. 19 is 23-0302, SDR1, applicant owner, City of Las Vegas, for a possible action on a land use entitlement project request for a major amendment to a previously approved site development plan review to allow improvements to an existing park at 3250 Metro Academy Way. 20 is 23-0315, SUP1, applicant Fabiola Cavos, owner Kevin Lloyd P. Dytok, for possible action on a land use entitlement project request for a proposed tattoo parlor, body piercing studio use at 4704 West Charleston Boulevard. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone wanting to be heard on any of these items, please come forward. Good evening.
Good evening. Guess it's my turn again.
Yes. Now, if you're asking for this to be heard, just if you could just state your name and ask for it to be heard, and we can pull it from the one motion, one vote, so we can discuss this matter.
I would like it to be pulled from the one motion, one vote. My name is Eleanor Snyder. I live at 209 South Torrey Pines Drive, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89107.
And that's item number 18, correct?
Item number 18.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn this over to Vice Chair.
And through the chair, if I could quickly disclose, I will be abstaining from item 10. I'm involved with a company that has a ongoing dispute, and just out of an abundance of caution, I will be abstaining from that.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, on item number 10, I also have a business relationship with that particular individual on a different property, so I'll abstain on that particular one. And on item number 12, the owner of Mission Springs property is my landlord, where my office is, so I will be abstaining on that matter as well.
Great. With that, there's a motion on the floor to approve items 10 through 17 and 19 and 20.
All right, motion's on the floor. Please cast your vote. And Commissioner Rogan, if we could get your vote.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, looks like that motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, items 10 through 15, 17, and 19 are final action tonight unless appealed to the clerk in 10 days. And items 16 and 20 will move on to City Council on September 20th.
All right, before we move on to number 18, I'm going to pull forward 36, which is item 36 of Director's Business, which is 23-0090 TXT1, applicant owner, City of Las Vegas, for possible action on a request to amend LVMC 19 regarding commercial and industrial uses and development standards and to provide for other related matters. Staff recommends approval. Can we get the staff report, please?
Good evening. Michael Howe, City of Las Vegas, Department of Community Development. With the matter at hand, 23-0090 text amendment, I'll give a brief background, and with me I have Don Elliott with Clarion Associates. Real quickly, with the adoption of the 2050 Master Plan, one of the key things that's come up, we've heard this quite frequently, is the diversification and the broadening of the local economy. One of the things that we're really looking at were industrial uses. We haven't had an update to our Unified Development Code in over 12 years in regards to industrial uses and specifically the zoning districts and development standards. There have been a lot of emerging trends regarding distribution, fulfillment centers. Production is getting smaller, so we're looking at the feasibility and possibility of broadening the uses and having a scheme in place that allows more flexibility for fabrication in places that typically we haven't seen in the past, and then also an easier, more consolidated approach to the uses so there's less confusion about industrial uses. So with that, I will have Mr. Elliott give a brief background on where we started from, and then as that wraps up, if we have any questions, I will make a request to obey because we still have a couple items as we're moving forward in the consolidation of uses that we will introduce at the October 10th meeting for adoption. So with that, Mr. Elliott.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I have a very short presentation here. My name is Don Elliott. I am a senior consultant with Clarion Associates. We're based in Denver. My address, if you care, is 1600 South Street, Denver, Colorado, Suite 1700. We are a firm that does this for a living. We write development codes all over the country, and we think that gives us a good perspective on trends, especially as they relate, as to housing. What do I do here? Housing, industry, different types of mixed use. I won't read this to you other than to say that we're proud to have the chance to work with Las Vegas. Our task was four tasks in our work program. One was just to do a kickoff, drive around, look at your inventory, look at what wasn't fitting well with your current code. Secondly, as Michael mentioned, to consolidate. In the old days, we tried to name every single thing you could possibly do in industry. It can't be done anymore. There are too many hybrids. There are too many emerging technologies. And so around the country, people are trying to consolidate into fewer, broader categories. And we looked at trying to figure out what are the major trends in consolidating industrial uses in zone districts. Then we looked at development standards. If that's what you're going to call it and that's how we're going to define it, what kind of buffering does it need? What kind of lighting to protect the neighbors? What kind of parking or loading would it require, given that you are now trying to simplify the entire classification and process? And finally, putting that into consolidated recommendations. On the right hand, you can see we looked at 10 categories of uses, and we eventually focused on 5 of those. The red ones. We looked at all of these because in your CM and M districts and in other heavier commercial districts, I'm not touching it, guys, it's doing this on its own, you often allow a lot of the things that are in the black highlighted or the black font uses or categories. There is entertainment in some of these districts. There's retail in some districts. However, we shied away from recommending changes to those black font areas because they would have trickle-on effects throughout the city of Las Vegas if we were trying to rethink retail uses. And so we consolidated the ones that are in red: commercial, industrial services, manufacturing, production, things having to do with trucks and vehicles and equipment, storage, warehousing, storage, and waste and salvage, things that could be modernized, and the impacts of those changes could be pretty well contained within your heavier commercial and industrial districts. Can you go with the next one? We began by comparing with some other cities around the West. We looked broadly and considered about 10 or 12 or 15 different ones. Who are your competitors for this type of development? Who have updated their codes recently as opposed to trying to compare to something that is itself very out of date? And we ended up with this list. In the end, we compared your approaches and your standards and your definitions and your flexibility to that in Albuquerque, Fresno, Oklahoma City, Phoenix, and Reno, and Clark County. all the way through this process, there's been a little bit of a focus on what are the types of land that you have that Clark County doesn't have and vice versa. What are the competitive advantages? And to be very honest, I think there was a desire to not be more restrictive unless there was a good reason for it. If there's something that you could accommodate while meeting your standards and allowing investment to happen in Las Vegas, then we erred on the side of saying, yeah, let's figure out a way to make that happen. But it was a lot of comparison to other codes. Finally, last slide, we did consolidate your current list of uses into, I haven't counted, maybe half as many or less than half as many by consolidating into fewer, broader categories. That means that your operations, people who own these businesses, can shift as the market shifts into doing new kinds of different things, as long as they have similar impacts on the surrounding community without being treated as, oh, that's a change of use. It's a more broadly defined use, and so there's more ability to follow the markets. Again, second thing was to tailor the uses and the development standards to your inventory of land uses, which tends to be smaller parcels than you get out in county areas or in places with a lot of land. And basically, the third thing was basically look at what are those things that we used to say industry is heavy and it's noisy and it's dusty, but it's not necessarily. And there are lots of things that are smaller production facilities that have almost no impacts on their neighbors. They act like an office use. They have little impact. So if those are true, let's talk about not just your CM and M districts. Can we allow them in C2? Should they be allowed in business parks? Can we say we're being overly restrictive in those areas because they really don't have any impacts? We revised a number of development standards, which I mentioned earlier, to try to standardize them. And we recommended that in many cases, these kind of standards should apply to an entire category, one of those 5 red categories, or to a subset of them, rather than trying to tailor them for each individual use, because the impacts are very similar. And finally, there are some things that have particular uses that are not like those in the category around them that needed individual use specific standards. We updated and modernized those. I think that's enough background. I can stay around and answer questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone wanting to be heard, please come forward. All right. If I could ask you all to step to the side, please come forward.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Tashika Lawson. I live at 9725 Manheim Lane. I had a question regarding this. From the presentation that we just looked at, if we're going to be consolidating half of our codes, I think it would be really important and behooving of us to be able to review those as the public instead of just having a list that's up here. It looked like some of the markets that were being compared to are actually going to put us in Reno, which is a very like market, but it's also comparing us to Albuquerque, which is not so much like us other than the fact that it is a desert, and it is not actually a high tourist, doesn't have as high of a tourist use as we have. And then when it comes to for us to be able to look at this, we want to be able to see if this is actually going to work for the amount of diversity that we're seeing happening, especially in the industrialized area where we're in the city of Las Vegas and most of that land is left to be industrialized is inside of the historic west side in the downtown core. So I would just like some answers for that.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, gentlemen, ladies. Mike Ganson, 1100 South 6th. I'd like to comment, it kind of ties into an item that we have later on about homeless shelters and these non-sober and sober facilities, and also this food distribution. So we have that item coming up later on in the agenda, and I would like to see the city work on moving those kinds of services away from the residential neighborhoods or the entertainment or the tourist areas and move them into a industrial area where these kinds of people don't take their mayhem out of the residential neighborhood. Thank you.
Mr. Ganson, just so you know, at the beginning of the meeting, we held item number 30 until the October 12th Planning Commission hearing. So October 10th Planning Commission hearing, so we won't be hearing that one tonight.
Oh, that one's been obeyed, huh?
Yes, if you want to come back on October 10th. That way you don't have to stay all night.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes.
I'm glad I came up and spoke.
Yes, have a good evening. All right, I'm going to ask Seth Floyd to make a comment on the previous person who came up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Seth Floyd for the record, and Mike or Mr. Elliott might want to address some of the comments, but to Ms. Lawson, so the reason why you're just seeing a summary form tonight, and this is for the benefit of the Planning Commission too, Planning Commission will make a recommendation that will turn this into an ordinance that will then go on to City Council, and at that point you can see the entire document written out, and there will be a public hearing on that as well. So there will be a further explanation and an actual ordinance that will come out of this meeting if it's recommended for approval.
Mr. Chairman, Peter Lowenstein for the record. If I could just add on to that, also in the backup materials on this agenda, when the next item is heard next, because staff is requesting abeyance, in the backup materials attached to that agenda will be the staff report, which will indicate the proposed changes, so one can look at it there prior to it having a recommendation and then going towards council as the director has stated.
Thank you. Commissioner Walsh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question I have, my background's public safety and occupational health and safety. And anywhere you're coding or your project, how you're going to identify, deal with OSHA standards or local standards. Nevada is a OSHA state, so they're not only, we have our own, NRS here, but we also have the federal code under 19 CFR 1910, which I would love to see industries come back to America, and especially here in Nevada. But can you tell me how that fits in your plan?
Excuse me, the issue of OSHA compliance was not part of our scope of work. However, most communities that do this, if they're interested in requiring compliance, do it by and large for the entire code. That becomes a general standard affecting all the industrial uses or all the commercial uses, so instead of tailoring it to one at a time or trying to paraphrase the OSHA requirements for particular industrial uses. So I applaud you for wanting that to happen, but usually it wasn't part of what we were looked at, and the usual approach is make it a blanket requirement.
Through the chair, if I could just ask Mr. Elliott a question too, if you don't mind, quickly. You mentioned little to no impact uses. Just for a layman like me, can you give me like 2 or 3 uses, like what that means?
Yes, the most obvious one is that there are sometimes research facilities that are creating prototypes of things that they want to manufacture. They are testing the technology, and technically, under old definitions, that would be an industrial use. You're producing something. If you drove by it, you'd say, it looks like an office building to me. There are no trucks coming. They don't operate at night. They don't have any lights, things like that. Same thing is true for artisan manufacturing. As we all know, there are things that create either clothing or candles or brew pubs. Technically, you would say in the old days, you're making stuff. You should be in an industrial district, and we now say that is a new development in the market that really its impacts are much more like a retail use, and you ought to be allowing it in places that have retail uses. You can't tell that they're making things there. Those are my examples.
That makes good sense. Thanks for the clarity for me. Appreciate it.
Vice Chair, could we get a motion?
So there's a motion on the floor to obey this until the October 10th meeting?
Correct.
Okay, I'll make a motion for that.
Motion's on the floor. Please cast your vote. And Commissioner Rogan?
Aye.
Thank you. And that motion carries. And I am going to take one additional item out of order, which is item 31, which is 23-0290 VAR1. Applicant owner Feliciano Varay for possible action on land use entitlement project request to allow an existing 6-foot tall front yard wall with a 3-foot solid base height, where 5-foot front yard wall with a 2-foot solid wall base is the maximum height allowed at 62 North Sacramento Drive, Ward 3. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, Corey Stewart, Senior Planner for the record. This request is a result of an open code enforcement case for a wall that was built without permits. The wall fails to comply with Title 19 maximum height standards for a front yard wall. Staff finds the variance request to be a self-imposed hardship and recommends denial. Please note additional letters of support and protest were received since publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, sir. Can we get your name and address for the record?
Good evening. My name is Feliciano Ferre. My address is 62 Sacramento Drive, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89110.
I'm sorry, could you speak in that microphone and give me your name one more time?
My name is Feliciano Ferre. My address is 62 Sacramento Drive, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89110.
Thank you. You want to tell me about the application?
Yeah, wanted to see if I could get the approval of the variance for the fence that I already have there. I had the fence built. I didn't know that I needed a permit for it. A drunk driver crashed into my fence like 4 years ago, and I just replaced it. Didn't know that I needed a permit for it since I thought the fence was already there. I just had it rebuilt. I just changed the dimensions a little bit because I own small dogs and I didn't want them to be able to go through the brick part of it. And just wanted to see if I could get the variance approved.
Thank you, I appreciate it. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone wanting to be heard, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn this over to Plan Commission for discussion and possible action. I reviewed this item. This is in my ward, and look, there's plenty of visibility towards the front street. Well, one of the things that I look for on a lot of the properties that come before me is, we want to be able to see in your front yard. We don't want it blocked off and looking like a compound, just to be able to, for it to be visually attractive. I think you did a good job with this. I don't have a problem with this.
Yeah, I made sure that it was rebarred and cemented because when the drunk driver crashed, he literally went through the whole fence. So that's why this time I wanted they rebarred like every brick or every space in between the bricks and cemented everything.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, Vice Chair.
Through the chair, prepared to make a motion on item 31-230290 VAR1, a motion for approval.
Motion for approval, subject to staff's conditions. Yep. You agree to all staff's conditions?
Okay.
Thank you. 1 second, sir. Commissioner Rogan?
Aye.
Thank you. And that motion carries.
And those items are that item is final action tonight unless appealed to the city clerk in 10 days.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Going back to item number 18, as previously read into the record. Can we get a staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the proposed primary school replacement will adequately accommodate the current and projected student populations in this area and provide upgraded facilities for its students. The design attempts to meet the CV Civic Zoning District requirements where possible, deviations from several of these standards has been requested and is supported by staff. These deviations will have minimal, if any, negative effect on adjacent residential development. Staff therefore recommends approval of the requested variances and site development plan review. Please note additional letters of support and protest were received since publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chairman, Planning Commissioners. Chris Dingle, 1180 Military Tribute, Henderson, Nevada, 89074. I'm with the Clark County School District. This is the replacement of Garside Junior High. Garside was originally constructed in 1963 and it has passed its useful life. So as part of the 2015 bond revision 5, we are replacing schools that are past their economic life, and this is one of them. Staff is recommending approval. We've read the staff report and we agree with all the conditions. I have the architect here with me and he can give a brief presentation and I'll be able to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Roy Burson, 8882 Spanish Ridge Avenue, 89148, representing CCSD through our architecture firm. We could look at a site plan. Perfect. Thanks, Chris. So, space, can you hear me?
There's a button down at the bottom. There you
Got it.
There you go.
Got it. Okay, I'll get it figured out here. So, obviously many site constraints with it being an existing site. One of the biggest site constraints was to maintain the attendance of the school, to keep the school open while we're building the new building on the existing site. This site plan right here shows what it would eventually look like with the new school campus on the north side of the site and the field on the south side. Phase 1 would basically keep the existing school and parking and all those amenities on the south side while we're building the new building. Then once the new building is complete and ready to be occupied, the students will move into the new building, and then we would demo the existing school and create the fields. So.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone wanting to be heard, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Good evening.
Good evening. I know, welcome back. Again, Eleanor Snyder, 209 South Torrey Pines Drive, and I reside here. And all of the neighbors across the street have concerns in regards to the safety. Most importantly, I think, is a traffic concern. They're moving the existing buses to be loaded and unloaded here in the front of the school. This will have only one exit, which is on Torrey Pines, directly across the street from our homes. The driveways here, they are asking for a variance from 25 feet to 18.3 and 13, which is hardly enough space for cars and the large buses to get through safely. They are requesting, although they show trees and foliage around here, for a zero amenity zone, which means that we will look at 292 feet of blacktop with the exception of 10-foot sidewalk in front of our homes. Besides being ugly for the neighbors, the buses and the amount of traffic that will come through here, currently the buses unload where the school is here. We've requested at the meeting on the 1st of August that they maybe move the buses to the back area. They're planning a fire zone route, but that could actually be a loop for the buses as well. If that was done, it would alleviate some of the concerns in regards to foot traffic where the students will cut across that parking lot and meet their parents double parked on the street. In addition to the fire zone, we were told by an attorney that there isn't a 360 access for fire engines and that may not be up to code. The lack of green space that we are now faced with is a concern. City of Las Vegas Parks and Recreations, I don't think has looked fully at this space because you have a soccer field and a ball field that overlap one another, which means there cannot be any type of use at the same time. By moving parking spaces to the back, you allow for parking access for the people who are participating in these field events versus them parking on the street and in the cul-de-sacs of the homeowners on the other side, because there is no other parking or access. This is going to be fenced off from the pool, and yet new parking would allow for parking for overflow pool during the summertime, and nobody's going to park all the way on this corner to walk to the ball field on the other side. So that's the majority of our concerns, except for the basic amenities that they're trying to alleviate.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
If there's anyone else wanting to be heard, please come forward. We have 3 microphones, so please come forward.
My name is Miriam Ean, and I live at 217 South Torrey Pines. And I just want to support what my neighbor Ellie has said. When we were not brought in early into the planning stages of this property, we honestly found out about it just shortly before the meeting that was at the school on August 1st. and the plans were already there. I think that short-sighted planning of the property without taking input from those in the areas who are familiar with this. All of us have lived there, with the exception of one neighbor who's only been there 17 years. We've lived there 30 years. And for example, I mean, we know what's going on and the concerns that can happen with this ball field, because that is what has happened over here when it was installed. When that ball field was put in a few years ago, there was no accommodations for the parking that would come along with that. And so what we have seen is that people park on both sides of the street all along Newcomer and Hyde. Some of them go over and park in the Adcock parking lot over here. Sometimes they go through the gate here and park on the lawn if it's open. And I have seen kids darting out from behind parked cars, and it's not safe. So I just see that as a flip-flop of the problem. If we had been brought into helping to give input early on, that would have been one thing we would have discussed, and Ellie has addressed some of the issues with that. As we look at we were told that the blacktop area, the activities and stuff that are there are that we have to have those because that's the same as every school. And I would just propose that fair is not always exactly the same. And I mean, as a parent, I find you don't give every child exactly the same thing because that isn't what they need. And I think we need to take another look at this property and think, what does this need? What can we do with this property to make it not only safer, but also allow it to be something that works well for the community. One proposal that we heard from the neighbors was to, instead of tennis courts, why not do pickleball courts? It's a more popular sport now, and it's smaller courts. It may allow for some flexibility in that. So I think we have good minds working on it, and I think that we can come together and come up with a better solution that will meet the needs not only of the students, and have them be safe, but also safe in the neighborhood.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Anybody else want to be heard on this particular item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Mr. Dingle, would y'all like to come back forward and address any of those comments?
So I can start out by addressing some of the comments. We did have a neighborhood meeting on August 1st. And one of the suggestions that was made was to take this area in here, which is currently the basketball courts, tennis courts, it's the playground essentially for the school, and to turn that into parking. And also, the buses don't really have a room to turn around. And one thing I'd like to point out is this blue area. This is the City of Las Vegas's swimming pool, which is owned by the City of Las Vegas, and there is a parking lot in this area right here. So we did take that suggestion from them and we looked at it, but you can't really have buses come in. The buses come in before school is let out, so you're going to have children actively using this area, and then all of a sudden you're going to move them out for buses, and it really doesn't fit. The fire lane, I guarantee you this school will meet fire code. We have gone through, Public Works can chime in if they want. We show a fire lane on it. We pull permits from the state fire marshal. They have jurisdiction over it, and it will meet fire code. That's 100% not going to happen that we will not meet current fire code. The amenity zone, there will be trees out here. One of the things that we do for security purposes is we do not plant trees in the parking lots for the security cameras. So that's one thing I'd like to point out. The other thing, we have worked with the City of Las Vegas as Parks and Rec Department. I know they're not here right now, but we have met with them, and this is the reason why this area looks this way, because we met with them, and they said, we want what's over here put back on this side. So there are some constraints with this property, and the biggest one being the City of Las Vegas's pool right here, and that's just something we had to deal with. And so in order to flip the site, this is the site plan we've come up with, and we did look at some of the suggestions from the neighborhood meeting, and it's not really feasible to take this area and turn it into bus parking and eliminate a playground. And as far as the amenities go, the Clark County School District has educational, what are called the ed specs that we design to, and it's across the board to make sure that the schools all have the same things, and we don't really deviate from anything like that. So that's the reason why we have these courts and things like that in this area. So with that, if you have any questions for me.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, turn this over to Plan Commission for discussion and possible action. Commissioner Rogan, can we start with you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My comments were basically whether these neighbors were heard at that neighborhood meeting and whether the school district took into account the remarks that they brought forward. And it sounds to me that the school district did take into consideration what these neighbors raised at the neighborhood meeting. It just doesn't sound like, given the constraints of the site, given the requirements of the school district, given the existence of our Garside pool, that they're able to have the flexibility that perhaps the neighbors would want. I'm not quite sure at this point what it is that we could do. We could continue it for another meeting. I don't think, based upon what the school district is telling me and telling us today, that that would be productive and result in any design changes. I think, based upon what I've heard from the school district, that this is probably the best plan that they have for this particular site. I'd love to hear what the other commissioners have to say on this before I make a motion, but I'm ready to make a motion tonight.
Are there any other commissioners wanting to make any comments on this particular item? Yes, Commissioner Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question, and I'm sorry for asking, something's probably really basic, but are all schools in the Clark County School District 12 month now? I mean, not 12 month, like they have summer break, right?
Correct.
Okay.
There's currently no 12-month schools.
Okay. That was my question, because I just was looking at this and I always worry about urban heat island impact, and I just wanted to hear what Clark County is doing, what the school district is doing related to making sure that these kids are able to actually be outside and that there's sufficient tree coverage. And I understand the security point, but like what is being done so that if they're out on any of these blacktop spaces or these courts, that they are able to enjoy them without suffering ill effects from heat?
Well, if you take a look at this interior courtyard, you can see that there will be trees planted in it. And so you've got your admin building, your commons building, which is where the cafeteria will be, and the students will be circulating throughout the day in this area. And we have taken that into account, and there will be trees planted in this area.
Okay. Great. That was just my one. I just wanted to get some clarification, so thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Kasama.
Hi, I just had a quick question, and apologies if I missed it, but I know one of the comments was regarding the site of the blacktop, and I was just curious about the size or type of trees that will be bordering it, at least on the rims. I understand the security concerns of having it on the interior of the blacktop, but just curious if there's a way to kind of make the sightline nicer from the street view.
Well, I guess to repeat what Chris was saying is that we are putting in new landscape and trees along Torrey Pines. It's just within the interior of the parking lot from a safety standpoint in order to get cameras to visibly see all aspects of it. That's part of the CCSD standards, is to do that.
No, completely understand the security aspect. It was just nice to confirm that there will be some form of landscaping barrier just directly off of Torrey Pines.
Absolutely.
So, okay, thank you.
And to further, go off of what Commissioner Kasama was saying, I think she was asking what size trees were you planning on planting along that street frontage?
24-inch box,
Okay.
I believe. Obviously, meeting the standards of City of Las Vegas, too, with the spacing and everything.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm ready to approve this as well, but I just have one question. Was a traffic study done on the current operation, and then projection of how that traffic study would be after it's approved?
Is that a question for Public Works? If we can get Lucian to answer that.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, through you, they actually have an approved study, so the study was done based on what's currently projected, not based on the past circulation, but they do have an approved traffic study already.
The outcomes on it, do you know?
It talks about access, so like the driveway, the easterly driveway on Hyde will be closed during pickup and drop off. That's one of the requirements. The city is also constructing some safety improvements along Hyde, and so there's some coordination requirements for their project to coordinate with the city's project.
I can get you I could email you the traffic study if you'd like me to.
No, I just wanted to make sure one was done, and it sounds like it's approved, so thank you.
Yes, Vice Chair Cherry?
Through the chair, would you agree to a condition of 36-inch box on Torrey Pines for that small section where there is a potential impact?
So the ones in red, essentially, if I can clarify that with you? Yes, we would.
And I just raised that, it's these infill school rehabs are difficult, and they're moving things around, and if we could just do a little something for adjacent neighbors that gives a head start with some of that growth, I think that would be nice.
Commissioner Rogan?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the recommendation for 36 box trees. I think that's a great idea from the Vice Chair. I couldn't hear if the applicant agreed to that.
Yes, we did, sorry. Chris Dingle for the record.
Okay.
We agreed to it. CCSD agrees.
Okay. With that, I'm ready to make a motion.
Please do.
The motion for approval
Mr.
on
Chairman,
agenda
may I
item
just,
8.
just for
Yes,
the
go ahead.
record, may I specify
please
that
do.
condition of approval? That would be added to the Site Development Plan Review, SDR1, and that would read 36-inch box shade trees shall be planted within the landscape buffer adjacent to Torrey Pines Drive.
Thank you. Commissioner Rogan?
Thank you. It would be a motion for approval of agenda item 18, project 23-0301, items 18A, B, and C, subject to all staff conditions, including the additional condition read into the record this evening.
Motion for approval on the floor. Please cast your vote.
Aye.
And that motion carries.
Thank you.
And that is final action tonight, and let's appeal to the city clerk in 10 days.
Thank you. Moving on to public hearing items, starting with item number 22, Abeyance 23-0178, applicant owner Brody Lazord, for possible action on the following land use entitlement project request at 1001 East Bonanza Road, Ward 5. Staff recommends approval. 22A, Abeyance 23-0178, GPA 1, from PF Public Facilities to MXU Mixed Use. 22B is Abeyance 23-0178, ZON 1, from PR Professional Office and Parking to R3 Medium Density Residential. 22C is Abeyance 23-0178, SDR1, for proposed conversion of an existing one-story single-family dwelling to a two-story, four-unit multifamily residential development with waivers of Appendix F Downtown Las Vegas Interim Development Standards. Can we get a staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the Vision 2045 Downtown Las Vegas Master Plan has identified a need for additional and varied housing stock in the Cashman District to increase density in this area, including multifamily units. As this area already consists of single and multifamily residential uses, the applicant's requests for a general plan amendment and rezoning are appropriate, and staff recommends approval of both. Multiple waivers of development standards have been requested to support the proposed site design. The lack of on-site parking may contribute to an increase of on-street parking adjacent to other properties, and the reduction in perimeter landscaping is a self-imposed hardship. The site design is not compatible with the surrounding development, and therefore staff recommends denial of the site development plan review. This request is the result of a code enforcement action regarding the existing block walls on the north, east, and south perimeter, the existing detached garage and room addition that have been constructed without permits. If approved, the existing wall and gate within the 10th Street public right-of-way will be required to be relocated outside of the right-of-way as a condition of approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Hello, I just wanted to make sure that item 21 was tabled.
Yes, item number 21 was tabled. We will not be hearing that now or any time in the future unless it's brought back before us.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting?
All right, is the applicant for number 22 here tonight? This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone wanting to be heard on item number 22, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn this over to the Plan Commission for discussion and possible action, starting with Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the second consecutive meeting the applicant has not been present. I did, out of a courtesy, extend an abeyance last meeting to give us time. Sent communication, so I'm ready to make a motion to move forward on this.
Please do.
Item 230178 would like to make a motion for approval on 22A and B, and a motion for denial on item C.
Well, are you saying 22A and B for approval or denial on all three?
Approval on A and B and denial on C.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor. Would you like
Do we need
us to
separate motions?
Let's get a separate motion on A and B, and then from C. So you can do A and B together and then C separately.
Item 23-0178, motion for approval, items A and B.
Thank you. Motion's on the floor for approval on A and B. Please cast your vote. Commissioner Rogan?
Nay.
And that motion carries.
And those items will move on to City Council on.
And if we can get a motion on 22C.
Item 230178, item C, motion for denial.
Motion on the floor
Aye.
for denial. Please cast your vote. And that motion carries.
And Mr. Chair, all of those items will move on to City Council on September 20th.
Thank you. Moving on to item 23, Advance 23-0216, SDR1, applicant owner Diamond Zing LLC for possible action on land use entitlement project request for a proposed addition of 4 units to an existing 1-story, 3-unit multifamily residential development with waivers of Appendix F, interim downtown Las Vegas development standards at 401 South 11th Street, Ward 3. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, while more multifamily housing is desired within the downtown master plan area, the development as proposed is overbuilt. This is evident by the requested waivers regarding setbacks, parking, landscaping, and mechanical equipment screening. Therefore, staff recommends denial of the request. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Jennifer Lazovich, 1980 Festival Plaza Drive, here today on behalf of the applicant. You could look at the overhead, please. Thank you. So in yellow is the location of the site. It is on Lewis and 11th. And the reason why I wanted to put this up is for those of you that might not have had an opportunity to drive around this area. It's an area that is in the middle of what I would say is a revitalization transition. Around the site immediately to the north of us across Lewis Avenue, this multifamily building has been redone. Immediately across the street to the north, this multifamily building is in the process of being redone, and then farther north, that one has been redone as well. If you move west along Lewis Avenue, this corner multifamily building has been redone. This looks to be a new construction. I could be wrong, but turned into a multi-unit building. And then across here, that's also been redone. So it's an area that people are coming into and taking the existing structures that are there and revitalizing them. As you saw on the, when staff was reading in the item, this is what the building or the structure looks like today. This, while it looks like a house, it actually contains 3 different units inside of it. So that's what it looks like today. And then in various stages, these were pictures of some of the other projects that were across the street from us. That's obviously in the process of being redone. This one's already been redone. This one's been redone. This is in the process of being redone, but you can see the exterior fencing, and then that one's been redone as well. The site plan and what we're asking for tonight, in gray is the existing multifamily building with the 3 units. We are asking to add 4 additional units onto that. Addition 1, addition 2, addition 3, and addition 4. And with that, we have some waivers, and I'd like to go through those. For starters, we have an area where we have an RPDA mechanical equipment area, and we're unable to screen that for access purposes, and it's just a tricky thing to screen. That's right there, so we were asking for a waiver for that. On the east side of this, and in your backup, there is an existing, what looks to be solid but yet striped kind of fencing. It's not very attractive. That will be removed because that fencing kind of sits like right about here, and we're removing that, and we're putting in some on-site parking in this area. So there will not be any of that, if you in the backup and you see it, any of that striped looking solid metal fencing, that will be gone and replaced with the parking spaces right here. We do have a waiver for a 0-foot setback. That's here on the southeast side. This is our trash enclosure. There's an alley right here, and then there's a commercial project, or I should say it looks to be an office project here. So the 0-foot setback is here. The project that sits right to the south of us is like a 2-story, also multifamily building. So that's where that pinch point is. We do also have a waiver for some container measurements. The code requires it to be a 5 by 18, and what we're showing is 4 by 12. We believe that that area is actually right here, which is kind of an odd area for it to be back by the trash enclosure, but that's where we believe it to be based upon what our plans show. We do need it in another area. And then there was another suggestion in the staff report about the tree selection, and perhaps in some of these containers we could use a better tree that would grow better in the containers, which we're happy to do. And the final thing I just want to note is that in the past 30 days and from when we submitted this application, we added additional trees. That's why I've colored this plan from what you saw in your staff report. What we filed, we didn't have as many trees shown on the south side. That's what separates us to the existing kind of multi-tenanted multifamily building to the south. We did show some trees on 11th Street, and so there's a condition number 20 that requires us to enter into a license agreement with the city, which we appreciate. But we also added trees along Lewis Avenue, which we weren't showing before. And so if you're inclined to support this application, I would ask that condition number 20 be amended so that we enter into a license agreement with the city for any type of trees on landscaping along both 11th and Lewis Avenue, which is where we didn't have the trees before. And so that concludes my one other thing, as I had mentioned before, there was a number of those projects that had already been redone kind of right across the street from us. Many of them, as you saw in the pictures, was done by KLA. That was the name on the site. So we do have a letter from Mr. Foulad supporting this project. He's one of our major, or one of the neighbors that owns the most amount of properties around us. So we wanted to make sure that we reached out to him and explained to him what we were doing. And with that, now I conclude my presentation.
Thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone wanting to be heard, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, turn this over to the Planning Commission for discussion and possible action. Starting with myself, I'm looking at the site plan on our backup, and I'm looking at the site plan that you have with the colored trees, and I know our city staff probably has not had the opportunity to review that site plan, or they have?
They have, yes.
Okay.
We provided it to our planner, Josh.
Okay.
And weeks ago.
Nicole and or Corey, if y'all could just verify that y'all have seen this site plan, and I'll keep going on my comments while y'all look at this. I just want to verify, because you're showing trees going all the way around. I just want to make sure that we're actually agreeing to putting in these trees when we make a motion here in a moment.
Commissioner Slotman, what we can do, we don't have it in our current backup. What we can do is, I believe this will be required to go on to City Council due to the waivers that are requested. So we can meet with the applicant and be sure to get this revised landscape plan and get it part of the record before it goes on to city council.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I met with Ms. Lazovich in regards to this, and it made sense. And then I went back and I read it, and I had quite a few other questions. And so thank you for clarifying also before this hearing. And so I understand what that 0-foot setback is where that trash enclosure is. But we still have a landscape buffer going all the way down the back of the property. I go drive through this area probably 3 times a day, going from the Arts District back over to my office on Fremont and Maryland Parkway. And I cut through this neighborhood because we have so much construction on Charleston. And so I see all the redevelopment by Adam and Cameron at KLA. They're doing such a great job in that neighborhood, and a lot of the older places are being refurbished. I think this is where it's going, and you know, looking at this particular area, one of the things to me is making sure we're not blocking any site visibility on the other streets, the adjacent streets, because a lot of them are blocked by cars and everything else. I don't think this is going to have any impact on myself or anybody else driving in that neighborhood. I think it encourages more development in here, cleans up that old building, and so for all of those reasons, I could be in support of this. If anybody else has any comments, Commissioner Williams?
No, I would just add, I'm very familiar with the area as well, and it is transitioning. This will be compatible, obviously, with the existing footprint, so I can support it as well.
Thank you. And I encourage you to try to meet KLA standards because they really set the bar high in that neighborhood. So, anyways.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like Lucian Pyatt, Public Works.
Yes.
I'd just like to read in for the record that condition change for condition number 20.
Please do.
Just the first sentence will be changed. It'll now say, submit a license agreement for landscaping and private improvements, private patios and fencing in the 11th Street and Lewis Avenue public rights-of-way, if any, prior to the issuance of permits for these improvements.
Thank you.
That's the only change to that condition.
Thank you.
And we agree
Commissioner
with that
Taylor?
change.
Oh, just quickly, I believe I can be in support of this as well, and I just wanted to thank Ms. Lazovich for adding those additional trees in, because as the continued transition and redevelopment of this area happens, just really want to see the opportunities to make it walkable and to make it a more habitable area in terms of folks that may not be driving, and I know that that's one of the big goals downtown is to make it more walkable, so thank you for adding those in.
Thank you. And Ms. Lazovich, you agreed to the condition as read into the record by Mr. Pyatt?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. And all other standard conditions of approval?
Yes.
If approved?
Yes.
Vice Chair Cherry?
Through the chair, I'm going to make a motion for approval on item 23, abeyance 230216 SDR1. Motion for approval subject to all staff's amended conditions.
Thank you. A motion on the floor for approval. Please cast your vote. Commissioner Rogan?
Aye.
And that motion carries.
And that item will move on to City Council on September 20th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 24, advance 23-0237, applicant, the Mojave Group, owner ISO Development Partners 2 LLC, for possible action on the following land use entitlement project request at 331 West Utah Avenue, Ward 3. Staff recommends denial. 24A is abeyance 23-0237 ZON1 from M Industrial to C2 General Commercial. 24B is abeyance 23-0237 SUP1 for proposed mixed-use development. 24C is abeyance 23-0237 SDR1 for proposed 7-story mixed-use development consisting of 279 multifamily units, 97 hotel suite units, 2,800 square feet of interior commercial space, and 1,000 square foot outdoor plaza with waivers of Appendix F interim downtown Las Vegas development standards. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the applicant is proposing a residential and hotel development in the midst of industrial land uses that does not support the city's master plan goal for environmental justice by developing housing in the midst of industrial uses that may or may not pollute the immediate environment and place future tenants in a potentially hazardous environment. In addition, the subject site is located within the design district of the 2045 downtown Las Vegas master plan area, which is not planned for residential housing or tourist accommodation, but instead such industries as film, fashion, virtual gaming, green tech, and other creative-related industrial industries. Staff does not support the request for rezoning, as it would create a spot zoning situation in the midst of an industrial area that only benefits the property owner. In addition, the area is not walkable and not conducive for residential mixed-use development, and staff recommends denial of the special use permit and site development plan review. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Jennifer Lazovich.
Jennifer, sorry to interrupt you. If I could quickly disclose, I do have a minority financial interest in the property within the notification area. Doesn't affect me any greater or lesser, so I will be voting on the application.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thank you. Jennifer Lazovich, 1980 Festival Plaza Drive, here tonight on behalf of the applicant. This map that is on your screen right now shows you what the downtown master plan districts are. The project that's before you tonight, I know it might be a little bit difficult to see, but we're in this brown area, which is called the design district. And right where the pen is pointed kind of shows you that we're about one parcel in and right on the edge of where this orange is, into a district that, as staff read into the record, didn't contemplate having any type of residential within it. So that is one of the concerns that staff raises in the staff report. And I only point this out to show just how close to the edge we are out of that plan. This aerial and I'll kind of walk you through what is hard to probably see on there, but the site that we're talking about is here in green. Here's Fairfield, here's Utah. And again, much like the last item that I just represented, this area, if you look on an aerial, you wouldn't necessarily see that it's in transition, but if you go and drive the area, you'll see some things that are starting to change, or if you know what's come through and been approved and is on the horizon for future development. North of Utah Avenue, this is a new multifamily apartment project that is going in. Over here in yellow to the west of the site is a new retail center that's been approved. To the south of Wyoming Avenue, this is already built, but there's a new gas station and car wash. This again is where our site is proposed. And then as you move to the east, headed towards Las Vegas Boulevard, there's a new brewery that's been approved right here. There's also another bar and brewery that's been approved over here. Again, that's right on Utah Avenue. And then a little bit south, but again, just to show that this area in general is starting to transition. There's been a lot of discussion about atomic golf, and that sits down right over here. The proposed project before you tonight, I'm just going to, for right now, start with this plan, the landscape plan. It's for a mixed-use project. The mixed uses consist of multifamily for-rent apartments, some hotel use within that building, and then in addition to that, some ground level right along the street up here, the street frontage up here, some ground level, either restaurant or retail, something like that, that hasn't completely been flushed out, but that would be in this area with some outdoor, what I'm pointing to right now would be like the outdoor seating if it's a restaurant, with the retail kind of sitting back in this area. This gives you an idea, but with hard to see some of the landscaping, but that orange color is where we propose to do the retail or the restaurant, whatever it turns out to be. And then in this purple area along the ground floor, and this will become important as I show you some elevations, we would do some fitness for like the tenants and the hotel guests in that area, and then some leasing or concierge or something like that would be here. The reason why that starts to become important is some of our waivers included waivers to allow the garage to be seen on some of the street frontages. And so let me show you the two street frontages, which is Fairfield and then Utah. With Fairfield, this is going to be where the entrance into the garage is located. So what we've tried to do with this brown wrought iron color, this iron look in here, is to mask the feel of what that ground level garage looks like, but it's a little hard to do anything but that going this way. But what we do as you move this way and then transition over to the Utah Avenue elevation is we have a glass front on that ground floor garage. And that's, again, kind of the combination of that includes where we would have that restaurant or retail, where we would have the fitness office, the fitness area, and where we would have like the leasing concierge office. So we tried to, in the areas where we couldn't completely get that glass frontage along Fairfield, we tried to mask it or upgrade the facade here so that it wouldn't look obviously so like a garage. And then where we could do that retail commercial frontage look, we did that here along the Utah Avenue elevation. In the on the other elevation, just so that I can show you these, and I'll move on to a couple of other points, but what we've tried to do here, even with the parking garage areas that you could see here and on the south elevation here, we tried to break that massing up with some different paint colors. Again, those don't front onto street frontages, but we didn't want to just leave it as one monotone color. We upgraded that with some different paint color. A couple of the other waivers that we asked for included, for example, going back to a loading dock. As I had showed you where the only garage entry that we have to also put our loading dock within our garage. And so that was one of the waivers that we asked for as well. We do have quite a plaza area here that kind of sits on this hard corner. It's going to be multi-use for what it is there, but we think that what we could do is maybe do some type of art installation. This would be a private art installation, and I will be reading in a condition into the record that talks about that. The developer hasn't quite determined whether or not the art would maybe be something standalone, maybe it would be something affixed to the building, but we could work with planning as we move forward with this project into development on what looks the best, again, noting for the record that it would be private art installation. A couple of the other things that we would be adding to this is a 6-foot decorative block wall composed of 20% contrasting material shall be constructed along the southern property line. So we right now don't have that block wall, so we would need to be putting that in. The reason why that's kind of important is that's an area where we would have some type of pet relief pet area. So it's important, I think, to have that block wall away from the property owner to the south. So that there's both just some privacy for the people that are back here with their pets, but also some separation from the property owner to the south. We would also be adding a minimum of 2,000 square feet of shaded area shall be provided within the pool deck area located on the 3rd floor. We thought that this was important to the heat island effect just in general, and while we couldn't, that's where our amenity floor is, and so we couldn't necessarily do trees because a lot of them will be in containers, and at some point those trees in a concrete container can only get so big. But we do know that we want to provide some shade and some relief up there, so we thought about adding that condition for the minimum 2,000 square foot shaded area. Again, that's up on the amenity deck where the pool will be and the sauna and stuff like that. And then finally, we have a condition that reads, a revised landscape plan shall be submitted to the Department of Community Development prior to or at the same time as the application is made for a building permit, depicting the installation of 3 36-inch box southern live oak trees within the western perimeter landscape area, just to provide, again, some additional landscaping on a side where we're adjacent to a neighbor, not a street frontage, but get some additional landscaping over there to soften the look of the garage elevations that I saw you that were exposed on that side. So I will conclude my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone wanting to be heard, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn this over to Planning Commission. Ms. Lasevich, how many additional trees did you say you're planning on putting on the west property line?
We had 3 36-inch box trees
Okay.
on the western perimeter landscape buffer, on the western side here.
You said you have 3?
3 36-inch box trees.
Okay. And then, do you have any landscaping on the side where you have the dog run?
Turf. So, no trees, but obviously like an artificial turf.
Okay. All right, I am going to reserve the rest of my comments, see if anybody else has any questions.
Through the chair, just had a question on the art component, how that was going to be conditioned in or considered. That was something that I asked about previously before it was obeyed.
I have a condition if you want me to read it, which
Please do.
we've gone back and forth
Sure.
with, so we all know what it says.
Okay.
A private art installation shall be installed outside of the public right-of-way at the corner of Utah Avenue and Fairfield Avenue. The proposed private art installation shall be reviewed and approved by the Planning Division of the Department of Community Development prior to or at the same time as application for building permit is made.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And what height is the block wall along the pet area?
We are showing it as a 6-foot
Okay.
decorative block wall.
All right. I like the fact that you're putting that in. I think it kind of breaks up that parking garage. It's not screened on that side. And I like the screening on the two sides that front the street. I think we're doing a lot better job with our parking garages than what we used to do back in the day when we'd just leave them open. For the most part, you can't tell that it's a parking garage. Anyways, I like the look of the apartment. It's exactly what we need. We need more households down in the Arts District and downtown. We could tell by Symphony Park because everything that gets built there ends up filling up pretty quickly. And Vice Chair Cherry's projects, all of his fill up instantly. So this is great. We have tons of businesses, bars, restaurants, everything else downtown, and now our residential's coming in. In a lot of other cities, I've seen residential come in and be built, and then the bars, restaurants, and everything else comes second. We're doing it a little bit backwards here. I don't think we're doing it wrong, but I'm encouraging everybody to bring more projects like this forward. We desperately need the rooftops, and you'll see my full support tonight. Commissioner Walsh?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just one question. I'm also leaning approval of the project. Looks like a great project. The question I have is the delivery entrance where the trucks go. Is that how high is that?
Gosh, I don't know if I know.
I'm just wondering, does the delivery trucks pull all the way in, or do they
Yes.
back in, or?
No, they'd be able to pull all the way in.
Oh,
That's the
okay,
concept.
okay.
I'm looking back to see. Correct? Yes, that's correct. So it would be tall enough to allow a delivery truck to go
And
underneath.
they could turn
and
around
drive
in there
in.
as well?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chair Cherry? Oh, Commissioner Taylor.
Sorry, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Just a couple quick questions. Can you define for me what you mean by private art?
It is art that would be maintained by the owner of the property as opposed to public art, which would be, as I understand it, so if anybody thinks differently in the planning department, please tell me, but public art is maintained by the city.
Okay. And then in considering how the applicant or how the project comes about, then it would just be great if this is just more of a comment. I know it's not a condition, and I'm really excited about this project. I think it's going to be a great anchor. But there's just some really fantastic art organizations and opportunities in the state and in the city. The city has a great public art program, and so possibly you might think about doing something where there is a competitive element to it for, artists in the city to be able to showcase their work, and maybe working with the art department in the city itself, or even through the Nevada Arts Council, which does do, all kinds of different funding and grants and competitions for art in the public, not public art. So just wanted to throw those out as some unique opportunities that this building could bring to downtown to then again highlight Nevada and Las Vegas artists.
I think that's a great idea. The developers in the audience has heard about that, and when we started talking about incorporating some type of art within this project, he had already been kind of thinking about that anyway. I do want to note for the record, and I think it's okay with everybody, but he hasn't quite decided whether or not it would be a mural, it could be a sculpture, it could be something, incorporated onto the building. but there will be something there, and how to get there, I think, is a very creative and great idea.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how that progresses. And then I just want to also say thanks for adding some additional trees on the walking spaces, since we've noted that this is a, sort of one of the first residential projects down here, and Acting Chair Schlotman has said bring more of these residential projects to this area. I think it's really important to set a standard that, what is going to make the most sense down here to continue in the vein of walkability is to make sure that there are shaded walkways that folks can actually use and take advantage of being able to walk to the different amenities that are coming in. So with those two comments, thanks again for the work that you've done on this, and looking forward to supporting it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And a question for staff, the addition of the block wall along the landscaped area where the dog run is going to be, do we need to condition that, or has that already been conditioned or put on a site plan? And Ms. Lasevich, while the city staff is looking that up.
I can read the conditions, or Nicole can read the conditions.
Mr. Chairman, yes, that's part of the additional conditions of approval. If you'd like, I can read them all into the record so that they're specified.
Please do.
Okay. For item number 24, 23-0237-SDR1, added condition A would read, a private art installation shall be installed outside of the public right-of-way at the corner of Utah Avenue and Fairfield Avenue. The proposed private art installation shall be reviewed and approved by the Planning Division of the Department of Community Development prior to or at the same time as application for building permit is made. Added condition B will read, a 6-foot decorative block wall composed of 20% contrasting material shall be constructed along the southern property line of the subject site. Added condition C reads, a minimum of 2,000 square feet of shaded area shall be provided within the pool deck area located on the 3rd floor. And finally, added condition D reads, a revised landscape plan shall be submitted to the Department of Community Development prior to or at the same time as application is made for a building permit depicting the installation of 3 36-inch box southern live oak trees within the western perimeter landscape buffer. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Lasevich, you agree to all those conditions, added conditions?
Yes, we do.
And all the standard conditions if approved?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Vice Chair Cherry, could we get a motion?
Through the chair, prepared to make a motion, item 24 for approval, blanket motion, subject to all staff's conditions that were read into the record.
All right. Motion's on the floor. Please cast your vote. Commissioner Rogan.
Aye.
Thank you. And that motion carries.
Thank you very much.
And that item will move on to City Council on September 20th.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for your developer, right across the hallway over here, there's the future art calendars and everything on there. They're laying on a table for people to take a look for. I just happened to be near them today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 25, advance re-notification 23-0240 SUP1, applicant Serenity Wellness Center, LLC, owner 1800 Industrial LLC, for possible action on a land use entitlement project request for a proposed 3,700 square foot cannabis consumption lounge use in conjunction with an existing cannabis dispensary use with a waiver to allow an outdoor consumption with an existing 300 square foot outdoor patio area at 1800 Industrial Road, suites number 100 and 102. Vice Chair Cherry.
Through the chair, my family's in the cannabis industry and we sell throughout the state. I will be abstaining out of this out of abundance of caution.
And we did pre-construction services for Serenity Wellness years ago. We have a outstanding bill that was never paid, so I'm not going to be voting on this item as well. Thank you. Can we get the staff report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the proposed consumption lounge adheres to all minimum Title 19 special use permit requirements. Staff finds the use can operate in a harmonious and compatible manner with the existing commercial development in the surrounding area and thereby recommends approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll turn it over to the applicant for the presentation.
Casey Miller, for the record, on behalf of the applicant, Serenity Wellness Center, LLC, 1800 Industrial Road, along with Dominic Monaco and Jamie Dixon. Our proposal is a retail-attached cannabis consumption lounge. The consumption lounge will be directly adjacent within adjoining suites to the existing Oasis Cannabis Dispensary, which has been operating since 2015. Our location is centrally in between the Arts District and the Las Vegas Strip, and we think that this proposed project presents a unique opportunity to have a sort of community space that can attract both existing residents here in the city as well as tourists. We're proposing this to be a sort of community space that can be rented out for private events, including having a stage, having games, TVs, really an event space that can be both rented out privately, and the lounge itself will host our own events. We are requesting a waiver for outdoor consumption on a 300 square foot patio. The location of that patio is sort of tucked in the rear of the building, so it doesn't actually face out on the main thoroughfare, and it's kind of in between the two entrances to the existing dispensary and our proposed entrance for the consumption lounge. We appreciate all the work that staff has done throughout this, and we appreciate that they recommend approval, and we are happy to accept the staff's conditions.
Thank you very much. This is motion as a public hearing, so anyone from the public wishing to be heard, please come forward. All right, I'll close the public hearing comments and turn this over to the Planning Commission. And so I'll open it up for discussion.
Can you show me what the proposed consumption lounge is? What's the surrounding type of businesses in that area?
So the lounge itself will be built into an existing mixed-use center. And so you'll see that here is the existing Oasis Cannabis Dispensary, and these two suites are presently office space and conference center space for Oasis. There are a variety of tenants in this area. I know there's a tattoo parlor and a hairdresser. It's a true mixed-use space.
Commissioner Taylor.
Thank you. To follow up on Commissioner Wallace's questions about the existing space and your neighbors, I am concerned that you are going to have a consumption lounge in a space where people put money in to their businesses, rented space, and they did not have any say or knowledge that they were going to have a consumption lounge then potentially come in next to them. I also note that there are 3 protest letters to this proposed use. And so while I recognize that staff has approved it, I want to find out from you if you know who opposed this use in your request, and whether or not you have spoken with your neighbors, because as you note, there's a lot of different ones. You've got, acoustic musicians, you've got a makeup artist, you've got a snack retail store, you've got somebody who hangs clothes, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, engineering, consulting services. And so, a therapeutic arts center, a photo studio. So all these people may not be, and I don't know, but they may not be okay with having to smell cannabis in their businesses throughout the day. And so who is opposed, and what efforts have you made to talk to your neighbors about having this consumption lounge in this building with them?
Yeah, so we do not know specifically who is opposed, and we haven't had a lot of outreach within the adjacent uses. I will note, we are obviously sensitive to to their needs, the needs of their businesses, and also just simply being courteous neighbors. One thing that I would like to point out is, especially within the lounge itself, we do have very stringent ventilation requirements with the city, or with the state regulations that do require us to make sure that we're really mitigating any odor. As far as within their own businesses, I'll point you to our site plan here as well. This, I guess this needs to be seen in conjunction a bit. So, our neighboring tenants would be in this direction, along with this being the existing dispensary shared here. But this space here also is a non-smoking portion of the lounge. So, we are sensitive, obviously, especially to overflow of any odor. And so we have built in a sort of buffer zone here of non-smoking. But again, we are obviously very sensitive to, we would like to be courteous neighbors throughout all of this.
Yeah, I guess my concern is that I appreciate everything you said, and I recognize that there are standards. My concern is that even as you're saying you are sensitive to it and you want to be good neighbors, you've said that there was not really any outreach to the other occupants in the building to get their input. And I'm looking at the building, and I don't know what year it was built, but I'm looking at this picture and not thinking it's a particularly newer building, so I'm not confident in what the HVAC system is like. And so even with your stringent requirements from the state, I don't have a lot of confidence that this isn't going to impact your neighbors and the other residents. And so for those reasons, even though I know staff has approved it, I'm very concerned, and I just can't support this use. So.
This is Dominic Monaco, by the way, Chief Science Officer for the parent company. I will point out, as far as where the consumption concerns that I think that you would have would be on the patio, but if you look at the patio, the two adjacent properties are our properties. No consumption will be happening anywhere towards the front. It'll be all in here, inside this gray area. In addition to the regulations he's referencing to are CCB requirements, and that refer to air exchanges per hour, as well as carbon scrubbing the material as well, so it takes out any of the odor.
Okay, thank you for that. So then I'm understanding you're saying that there's not cannabis consumption that's smoked cannabis inside and is only on the patio? No.
No, so I'm saying the requirements for the air exchanges and the carbon scrub of the smoke are inside of the area. There aren't any requirements for scrubbing air on the patio area. And again, that if you look, the two adjacent areas are the proposed lounge and the current cannabis dispensary.
Okay, thank you so much.
No worries.
I just have a question. Would like to have more clarification around the waiver for outdoor consumption. Can you talk us through that a little bit more? What's happening with that?
Yeah, so as far as outdoor consumption, so this area here will be, there's a photo in the backup material. That area currently covers 2 parking spaces with sort of an awning overhanging. And so we would like to convert that into a 300 square foot outdoor consumption space. And so we haven't nailed necessarily down the exact specifics of what that space will look like, but it would be a small area that would permit outdoor consumption. There would be we're going to have a sort of fence or some sort of other barrier that goes up around that patio area. Obviously, we're sensitive to, we can't allow people to be passing any cannabis products through that, and obviously we can't allow that consumption to be visible, from any sort of public space. And so our goal with that patio space is to, just have an outdoor area with some air flowing through it that would sort of funnel any odor upwards, as opposed to, sending that more in an outward direction.
All right, thank you. Sounds like we've still got quite a bit of work to do to understand the functionality with the usage proposed for that space. Any other comments from the Planning Commission? Commissioner Walsh.
Thank you, sir, through you. And my concern is you're the first applicant for consumption inside a building. And I'm sure you all know, you walk around anywhere in the city, the smell, it reaches 50, 60, 100 feet, you can smell it really strong. So I think, and same with Commissioner Taylor here, is about the issue of people what it will infringe on people that will smell, who don't like the smell and things like that. You came up with the scrubbers and things that are going to take care of the smell inside the building. Sure. But I'd like to see the science on that, but that's a whole nother subject matter there. But now you're going to do an open area, or that's in the planning method that you're talking about, this open area. I don't think the scrubbers or ventilation system is going to take care of that smell, especially in an outdoor venue. So I think there's a lot more homework to be done, folks, and especially what the fellow commissioners here said as well. You don't even know in your own complex that people agree or disagree, and that's a big issue, folks. And if it sounds like I'm being overly cautious, I am. You're the first ones. We want to make sure we do it right, okay? The cannabis industry is doing a great job here in Illinois, or in Nevada. I'm going to go back home, right? And so I do personally want to make sure that it's done right, folks, okay? There's nothing against the industry itself. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Walsh. So to the applicant, if it meets your approval, I'd actually like to make a motion for abeyance until the September 12th meeting, so there's time to really continue some due diligence to better understand a lot of the questions raised by the Planning Commission tonight.
Understood.
All right, so on item 230240 SUP1, I'd like to make a motion for abeyance to the September 12th meeting. Motion on the floor.
Commissioner Rogan?
Aye.
Chairman Jim Lewis, real quick, I just want to make sure that the applicant said I understood that's a yes, correct?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
That motion carries.
All right, we'll see you on the 12th. Moving on to item number 26, applicant owner. Item 26 is 23-0206 VAR1, applicant owner TGP St. Louis Associates LP for possible action on land use entitlement project request to allow a proposed 256 square foot wall sign where 50 square feet is the maximum allowed at 525 East St. Louis Avenue, Ward 3. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the proposed wall sign exceeds the maximum size allowed per Title 19 requirements. Staff finds the variance request to be a self-imposed hardship and thereby recommends denial. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
My name is Scott McIntosh, representing the applicant with Hartlauer Signs at 3900 West Dewey Drive, Las Vegas, Nevada. We spoke with staff, and first I'd like to show you what's proposed so you can get a scope of what's going on here. It is a large wall sign. However, it's a large building. They're revitalizing this building and bringing it up to more current standards. I would like to switch this out to show the same building back in 2015. The reason we came up with this original size is there was a sign here already this size, and there's no cultured stone behind it. So she's asked to go that size to cover up the opening. If I may switch papers, this was the same building with the original Siegel Suite signs there. It's been removed, of course. The building's being revitalized. So, with that said, if you have any questions?
Thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone want to be heard, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn it over to the Planning Commission. I reviewed this application. It's in my ward. I think it looks appropriate. It covers that little blank canvas. A sign used to be there, so I don't have a problem with it. I think it actually adds to the building. So if nobody else has any comments, I'm going to look for a motion.
Through the chair, prepared to make a motion for approval on item 26, 230206 VIR1, subject to all staff's conditions.
Thank you. Motion's on the floor. Please cast your vote. Commissioner Rogan?
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh is not present. All right, and that motion carries.
And that is final action tonight unless appealed to the city clerk in 10 days.
All right. Moving on to item 27, 23-0223, applicant Nor Armenian, owner Stewart Square LLC, for possible action on the following land use entitlement project request at 4401 Stewart Avenue, Ward 3. Staff recommends denial. 27A is 23-0223 VAR1 to allow a 8-foot side yard setback where 10 feet is required, an 8-foot front yard setback where 10 feet is required, and a 1-foot rear yard setback where 20 feet is required. 27B is 23-0223 SUP1 for a major amendment of an approved special use permit for a proposed 1,633 square foot expansion to an existing 2,600 square foot auto parts, new and rebuilt accessories, sales and services, and auto repair garage minor use. 27C is 23-0223 SDR1 for a proposed 1,633 square foot addition to an existing 2,600 square foot commercial development and reconfiguration of parking. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the subject commercial building is a legal non-conforming structure as it was constructed prior to current development standards. As such, demolishing a portion of the building and adding square footage requires current Title 19 standards to be adhered to. The applicant is proposing building additions that do not meet current Title 19 requirements for setbacks, and staff is therefore not able to support the requested variance, special use permit, and site development plan review, and recommends denial of all three. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Nora Armenian, 4401 Stewart Avenue. I represent the owner of the property. Our application today is to modify and upgrade an existing building which was built in 1980 for an animal hospital. Since 2003 and for the past 20 years, the property has been operating as a tire shop. To comply with the City of Las Vegas requirements, we have added a sand oil interceptor and a firewall dividing the building. Our objective is to demolish the A-frame and replace it with a rectangular building which is more functional. We will be tearing the A-frame, which is 1,218 square feet, and replacing with a rectangular building structure, 1,633 square feet. Within this new space, we will be able to accommodate a customer waiting area, a restroom, and a small office. The difference in the square footage of what we are tearing down under the A-frame and the rectangular space, the square footage that we are gaining is only 415 square feet. And that is the space that we will be able to utilize, which is currently wasted under the A-frame, which is this open space. We are not changing existing building setback, and we are not increasing our building footprint. We have met with City Planning Department twice, and we have shared with them our concept, and we thought we have addressed their concerns. We would like to answer any questions or concerns that you may have to get our approval to be able to proceed with the building application. Thank you.
Thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone wanting to be heard, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn this over to myself. So, a lot of items in Ward 3 tonight. Thank you for taking the time to speak to me on the phone. I was a little confused on some of these items before speaking to you. The block wall that you are installing will be on that would be, which side of the property? That's right next to the drive entrance, right? Yes, okay. So, and the side that she just pointed out was the section where she's requesting a 0-foot setback, and we can all see the 0-foot setback from a driveway coming into the property. It's not encroaching on any other building or any other residential structures or anything else. So that was one of my big issues there, and whenever I noticed that it was not going to encroach on anybody else's property, I was fine with that. And so the entire front section is basically what we're focused on. We're taking that old A-frame structure down. We're building. Yes, that structure's coming down, and we're building the rectangular structure that you showed on your other elevation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
One more thing. Currently, we have this ramp to accommodate, and we will also be removing this, so there will be more setback. The building will not infringe further than currently is. So this will go away when it looks like this, because this will be the customer entry. It's going to be.
Mr. Chairman, staff does not have that building elevation that's currently on the projector. Is it possible that she submits that to the clerk so we can have that as part of our official record, so that when a building permit does come in, we do have that to reference?
Yes.
Which one? This
the
one?
The one that's up there. We'll take that from you after we're finished with the presentation.
Right.
Yes, because the one, Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, but it almost looked like it was still a triangle up front, slightly slanted back, which is what we have in our backup.
Mr. Chairman, yes. We've got, it's a little conflicting, and I can see in real tiny print, it does say existing, so it would be really helpful for staff to have that color rendering,
Okay.
so that we can refer that in the future.
Okay. And not that I'm opposed to this. Actually, I think the building looks fine just the way that it's being presented to us today. It didn't look like there was much of a change going from an A-frame to a little bit bigger A-frame of what we thought you were going with. But anyways, I've looked at the floor plan. I looked at your setbacks, looked at everything else that you're doing, and I don't have a problem with this, considering that the building is existing, and we already have setback issues with the property. So if there's no other comments, I'd be looking for a motion.
I was just going to address that ramp. Looks like it was an ADA wheelchair ramp, but now your plan is to make it ground level, the whole new building, so it wouldn't apply anyway, so that's okay, especially if you're going to demo the whole building. How long do you think it'll take once it's approved?
You mean once we pull the building permits?
Yeah, you look at a couple months to get back in?
We are hopeful.
Okay, all right.
Because we are keeping this balance of the building. So it's only this section, and we are hopeful it's going to be only a few months,
Okay,
yes.
yeah, it really upgrade the
Yes,
community as
yes.
well. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And sorry, through the chair, if I have one quick question.
Please.
So the balance that you are keeping, are you matching that elevation, redoing the facade to match the, I guess, the architecture of it on the new portion?
This elevation is going to be higher than the existing building, but it's going to be lower than the A-frame.
Okay.
The proposed elevation is 16 feet. The existing A-frame, all the way to the top, is almost 26 feet.
But the existing building to the left of the A-frame, so above that, in the existing portion?
This is lower than
No,
this.
the picture above you, like above that?
Sorry, this one?
Yeah, so you're going to modify the facade of the old one as well?
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
so it matches up. Okay,
Correct,
thank
correct.
you.
Yes.
Through the chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Please do.
On item number 27, a blanket motion for approval, 230223, subject to all staff's conditions.
Can you agree to all staff's conditions? Nora?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion's on the floor for approval. Commissioner Rogan?
Aye.
Thank you. And that motion carries.
And that is final action tonight, and must appeal to the city clerk in 10 days.
Thank you. Item 28 is 23-0229 VAR1. Applicant owner, Good Hood LLC, for possible action on a land use entitlement project request to allow 88 square foot sign area where 75 feet is maximum allowed for two proposed monument signs at 201 South Las Vegas Boulevard, Ward 3. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the two proposed monument signs exceed the maximum size allowed per Title 19 requirements. Staff finds the variance request to be a self-imposed hardship and therefore recommends denial. Please note an additional letter of support was received since publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening again. My name is Scott McIntosh with Hartlauer Signs, representing the applicant. My address is 3800 West Dewey Avenue, Las Vegas, Nevada. We are exceeding the overall area. However, a monument sign, you got to have criteria to keep them from getting too big, becoming pylons. Although this falls under that definition of a monument sign, you can see that the layout is not tall and square and rectangular. It's more linear. We're very close to the square footage. We've tried to work with the customer to bring the square footage down. They asked for us to please come before you and see your thoughts on this.
All right, thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. If you want to be heard, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn this over to the Plan Commission for discussion and possible action. This is in my ward. I think it fits with that building and what's going on downtown. There's not a lot of places where you can put a sign on this building where it'd be visible and not detract from that overall building. I mean, how is this? This sign is going. I'm fairly familiar with that intersection, so we have a pretty deep sidewalk there, and then this is just going behind the sidewalk.
It's actually going to go in a landscape buffer. The existing pillars, they're going to have a retaining wall with seating out on this patio, I guess. I'm not 100% sure. This letter set would go up against that retaining wall in the landscape area.
Okay. I hadn't seen a lot of signs going at ground level downtown, so I'm kind of curious how this is going to work out long term.
Yeah, around town they're becoming very popular. Unfortunately, it gets categorized as a monument, which is a more monolithic looking sign, and this is really a letter set that could have gone on the building, but there's really no place to put it without detracting from it.
But this sign's built pretty durably, where you're not worried about people kicking it and constantly breaking the letters, or is this backlit or?
It's internal lit with the Lexan covers. Yeah, they're going to be made welded aluminum, fastened with into the footing, so they'll be able to climb on them.
Okay.
I doubt be a problem, but who knows?
All right. If there's no other comments, I'll look for a motion.
Through the chair, prepared to make a motion on item 28230229 VAR, a motion for approval subject to all staff's conditions.
All right, motion's on the floor. Please cast your vote. Commissioner Rogan?
Aye.
Thank you. And that motion carries.
And that is final action tonight unless appealed to the city clerk in 10 days.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Moving on to item 29, 23-0239, applicant KB Home, owner 999 Investments LLC, for possible action on the following land use entitlement project requests at the southeast corner of Rocky Avenue and Alpine Ridge Way, Ward 6. Staff recommends approval. 29A is 23-0239 MOD1 to amend the Kyle Canyon Gateway Master Development Plan to add 4.13 acres to the plan, designate the land use as ML on 18.26 acres, and amend design guidelines. 29B is 23-0239 ZON1 from U undeveloped PCD Planned Community Development General Plan designation to PD Plan Development. 29C is 23-0239 VAC1 petition to vacate portions of Ruston Road, Michelli Crest Way, and McKinnister Road, public right-of-way, and U.S. government patent easements generally located at the southeast corner of Rocky Avenue and Alpine Ridge Way. 29D is 23-0239 SDR1 for a proposed 162-lot single-family residential development, and 29E is 23-0239 TMP1 for a 162-lot single-family residential subdivision. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the applicant is proposing to add acreage to the Kyle Canyon Gateway Master Plan in order to develop a 162-lot single-family residential subdivision with an overall density of 6.75 dwelling units per acre. The proposed modification and rezoning will allow for continuity and predictability of development in this area, and staff recommends approval of the major modification and rezoning. Staff has no objection to the vacation of public right-of-way and public drainage easements, as it will support the proposed development and allow for additional open space. The proposed site development plan review and tentative map conforms to the Kyle Canyon Gateway Master Development Plan and design guidelines as modified through this request, and staff is recommending approval of both. Please note additional letters of support were received since publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, my name is Tony Celeste, address 1980 Festival Plaza Drive, here on behalf of the applicant, KB Homes. As you can see from the aerial, our site is highlighted here on yellow. It's approximately 20 acres located on the west side of US 95, north of Kyle Canyon, more specifically on the southeast corner of Rocky and Alpine Way. This application has a couple of major components to it. The first two are a major modification to the plan, a zone change, and then the site development plan review. Before getting into the specifics of the application, I think it's important to give a little background about this property. You can see right here the portions in pink are the Kyle Canyon Gateway. About 2 years ago, in April of 2021, the city of Las Vegas adopted the Kyle Canyon Gateway. It was about 101 acres, here outlined in pink. The predominant builders in this area, KB Home and TriPoint. So as mentioned in the staff report and by staff, it was ideal that this come in and have its own standards and design guidelines so that everything could be uniform out here. The first two components of this application are actually to add an additional 5 acres to that Kyle Canyon Gateway plan. Those are the 5 acres highlighted here in green. This is the site right here, so you can see 15 acres of it are already within the Kyle Canyon plan. We are asking to amend the plan to add additional 5 acres. It'll take Kyle Canyon Gateway acreage from about 101 acres to 106 acres. Along with that is the corresponding zone change. We appreciate staff's recommendation of approval on that. The next major component of it is actual design of the site development plan review. We had a neighborhood meeting back in June of this year where we unveiled initially a 179 lot subdivision here. That neighborhood meeting provided a lot of comment and feedback, in particular the amount of density and lack of amenities and landscaping in the area. So with that, we took a lot of notes, went back, put pen to paper to start redesigning and incorporating those comments. So what we've done now is what you see before you is a reduction in units from 179 to 162, lost 17 homes. We have basically reprogrammed our eastern property line. We need to have drainage out there. We're in the 10 and 100 year flood zone. We've been able to reincorporate that in areas on the east portion of the site to make that some programmable, usable space. I think what is most illustrative is actually this site plan or the landscape plan here. As mentioned, 162 homes now, main access off of Rocky. And what we've done is really increase our main open space area and the entrance to this. Within that, we're going to have programmable, open, usable space. We're proposing a couple of pickleball courts, volleyball court, a large shade structure. In that, we have a meandering walkway that will then connect to a smaller open space area, pocket park. With that, we are going to have some interactive game, basically a game table that could have chess or various types of games that can be played on there. Again, we're going to have a lot of landscaping to provide shade there. Notably, in our drainage area, the 10 and 100 year flood zone, we're adding additional amenities in there. We're going to add a dog park, another shade structure. The dog park will be we're going to submit a revised landscape plan. We do have to go to City Council. The revised landscape plan is actually going to show the dog park increasing in size. We're going to do a 40 by 75 foot dog park. In addition to that, we have a shade structure within the dog park. We're going to increase that to 10 by 16. That way it can accommodate 4 benches under it. All of that will be submitted between now and our September 20th City Council, but I did want to put that on the record that we're making those changes. All the homes are going to have the ability to have EV charging stations. It is an option that a home builder can have. We are committed to that, and we have worked out a condition that we'd like to add. I'll read it now, but staff does have this condition, that the proposed subdivision shall be designed with an energy capacity to allow for EV charging stations within each of the home sites. So we are committed to that. With all this, we greatly appreciate the time that Commissioner Taylor and Ward 6 has put into this. Many meetings. I think we have now captured everything that was requested in this. One of the things we do want to highlight that this is for entry-level homes, so we're very conscious of the price points, but yet providing a lot of amenities and a great product. We anticipate the price points to be about $391,000 to $441,000, depending on the model. And then probably another 15% on top of that based on any type of options, lot premiums, things like that. With that, we appreciate staff's recommendation of approval on everything. Appreciate Commissioner Taylor, all your work and effort in meeting with us to help us get to a community that we think is not only compatible to Kyle Canyon, but will be a great place for probably first-time home buyers. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We agree to all the conditions of approval, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone wanting to be heard, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn this over to Plan Commission, starting with Commissioner Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Celeste, for all of the work from your client and yourself in bringing a project forward that is, like you said, got a lot of amenities, really looks at integrating landscaping and a more cohesive and compatible sort of design within Kyle Canyon. So I really appreciate all of the efforts that you guys went to help meet some of the requests that I made on this Just a couple things, I just want to make sure we're getting some, just to have it clarified. Within the eastern boundary where the dog park is, it's a little obscured, but there's a second shade structure there for picnicking and gathering, correct?
Correct. So we're going to have two shade structures, one more kind of within the dog park area. That is the one I referenced that we will increase. We're currently showing a 10 by 12. We're going to increase that to 10 by 16 so that we could get 4 benches under there comfortably. And then, yes, we do have a second shade structure. That'll be 20 by 40.
Okay, great. And then there's a second 20 by 40 shade structure up by the pickleball and volleyball courts.
It'll be right, that is correct, right where my pen's located, yes.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the EV issue, and thanks for getting a condition crafted with staff on that. As we discussed, as we look to, more folks adopting EVs, we wanted to make sure that this project had the infrastructure in place to, accommodate any and all of the homeowners who might want to have an EV and charge at their home. So could you just share for the commission a little bit about what that process is with NV Energy and what that means for those infrastructure upgrades?
Sure. So we have been proactively reaching out and working with NV Energy because we do want to have the ability for all 162 homes, should every owner either first-time home buyer or in the future elect to have that they have the upgraded transmissions to handle the capacity for EV stations for each home. So that is very important to you and very important to us that there is that ability. If the first home buyer does elect that as an option, then we will have that capability to provide that infrastructure immediately and provide that upgrade. If it is a second-time home builder or the second-time homeowner in here, or the homeowner wants to install a later date, the infrastructure will be there to accommodate that so that they then can coordinate with the installation of it, but the transmission and the capacity will be able to handle if 162 units were to go in. So that is what we have committed to, done, and that's specifically what the condition is for.
Okay, thank you. And this is not just those level 1 chargers where you're just plugging into the wall. This is to accommodate level 2 charging in the home, correct?
That is correct. That's my understanding, is a level 2.
Okay.
That is correct.
And then finally, what this infrastructure upgrade means that you have secured from NV Energy is that while there will not be chargers in the home unless, a homeowner does the package at the time of purchase and then installs the charger, a homeowner subsequent to either closing or buying it secondarily is not going to have to do a panel upgrade to be able to get the charging. Yeah.
That is correct. Just wanted to make sure, but yes, that is correct.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure we had that on the record.
Yes.
Thank you, Scott, for nodding from the audience on that.
Yes,
okay.
Correct.
All right. With that, I'll pass it to the rest of the commission. But again, thank you very much. I think this is going to be a community that is going to be well received, and I look forward to going and looking at the models once you get them built up. So thanks again for all the work, and I look forward to supporting this project.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, is it possible for the applicant to submit this landscape plan to the clerks so we have a copy of it for tonight?
Absolutely, and I will be submitting very shortly a revised one as well that'll show the increased square footage of our dog park and shade structure, but of course, absolutely.
Thank you. Commissioner Taylor, can we get a motion?
Yes. So I would like to make a motion on item 29A through E, 23-0239. Do I have to do all of those, Mr. Lewis?
No. You want an additional condition, I think, on 29D. Maybe Nicole can share that with us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you, I can read that condition into the record. It would be for the item 23-0239-SDR1, Added condition A will read, "The proposed subdivision shall be designed with an energy capacity to allow for EV charging within each of the home sites."
And we agree to that condition and all the other conditions.
Great, thank you, Mr. Sless. So again, then my motion would be for approval on 29A through E.
With the added condition.
With the
on
added
29B.
condition.
Thank you. Motion's on the floor. Please cast your vote. And Commissioner Rogan.
Aye.
Thank you. And that motion carries.
And that item will move on to City Council on September 20th.
All right. Moving on to item number 32. 23-0299 VAR1, applicant Elizabeth Fretwell, owner Fretwell Robinson Trust, for possible action on a land use entitlement project request to allow a 3-foot side yard setback where 10 feet is required for a proposed patio cover at 7960 West Rosada Way, Ward 4. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the proposed carport fails to comply with Title 19 side yard setback requirements. Staff finds the variance request to be a self-imposed hardship and thereby recommends denial. Please note additional letters of support were received since the publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Alexander Morales, 8525 South Pioneer Way, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89113, representing Elizabeth Fretwell. So basically, what we're trying to do is create an RV spot. I don't know if it will pick it up. So right now, they are parking their RV on the front of their house, and what they're proposing is to make an RV parking spot next to the house, use up the space that is right now just gravel, and create shade for that RV to kind of preserve the RV and add a little bit of shade and some design element to the back side of the house on the east side. The neighbor's house steps back, as you can see here, so it creates almost 25 feet to their wall, and then it would leave roughly 3 feet to the shade structure from there, so that's roughly 28 feet away. With the shade structure that we're proposing is an aluminum wood shade structure just to shade the RV, gives it a little bit of shade, some storage in the back for a towed around car that they tow behind the RV, and that whole area would then be paved and sit behind that existing gate.
All right.
Available for any questions.
Thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone wanting to be heard, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Turn this over to Plan Commission for discussion and possible action. Starting with Commissioner Kasama.
Hi, thank you. So regarding this item, I really don't have a problem with it. The RV is already there. I did see correspondence from the neighbor that they're in support of this item, which would be my biggest concern. And since, like I said, the RV is already being parked there, in fact, I see this as an improvement that keeps it even a little bit farther back from the street and a designated spot. I really have no issue unless there's other comments from the rest of the commission, but I would make a motion to approve unless there's anything.
All right, motion on the floor for approval.
Okay.
And you agree to all staff's conditions, sir?
Correct.
Thank you. Motion's on the floor. Please cast your vote. Commissioner Rogan.
Aye.
Thank you. And that motion carries.
And that item is final action tonight unless appealed to the city clerk in 10 days.
Thank you. Good evening.
Item 33, 23-0308 VAR1, applicant owner Abid Guman for possible action on a land use entitlement project request to allow a proposed solid 8-foot tall front yard wall, where 5 feet tall front yard wall with a 2-foot solid base is maximum allowed at 4796 North Cimarron Road, Ward 4. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the proposed front yard wall exceeds Title 19 maximum height requirements. Staff finds this request to be a self-imposed hardship and thereby recommends denial. Please note an additional letter of protest was received since publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Tim Moreno at 5888 West Sunset Road, representing my client, Mr. and Mrs. Abid Guman, whose house this is for. Mr. Guman is currently building his home on this property, and he's come in with a application to have a higher wall in the front yard, along with a gate. I need to clarify something. My clients are in their 80s, and they're asking for this for extra security of their property. The only thing that is 8 feet tall are the pillars and the gate, the vehicle gate. But and the fence itself, all along the front, we're only proposing 6 foot of height, where 5 foot is required. So this is a picture of what it will look like, less the archway. He's not going to install the archway, just the fence and the wrought iron gates and the wrought iron fence. He's going to keep the block wall on the bottom to 2 feet per the standard. And with that, this is the application, and we hope he hopes to get approval on it.
Thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone want to be heard, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn this over to Planning Commission, starting with Commissioner Kasama.
Hi, thank you. So regarding this item, it is proposed, so it's not an existing wall, and 8 foot just does seem a bit of a self-imposed hardship. I do understand the safety concern. We've certainly heard that issue raised before, but I do believe that 8 feet is just excessive, and I don't see how a 5 foot would not accomplish the job.
Oh, yeah, so I wanted to clarify that the only things that are 8 feet are the pillars and the gate. The rest is 6 foot. And we're only asking for 1 foot variance on the fence.
Yes, no, I understand that it is the pillar. So, and I guess that would be more of a design aesthetic request rather than a safety, since they are just in fact pillars and the vehicle gate. So that would, like I said, and when you raise the concern of safety, simply having the pillars be 8 foot tall, I just don't really, I have a little bit of an issue with that, especially concerning if neighbors in the surrounding area don't think that's harmonious and compatible with the design of the overall neighborhood. I could go to 6 foot, but and keep it standard, but I really, I don't know if 8 foot, unless there's any other comments from the rest of the commission, but I would be open to a 6 foot variance, but I think that would be more acceptable. But I really don't see the need for 8 foot tall pillars. It's hard for me to kind of come to terms with that. Do you have any comments in return?
I have to get with my client to see if he's okay with the 6 feet, but yeah, I think the pillars are just more for the look. Overall, the fences are 6 feet, but I think the pillars are more for the
aesthetic
ambience. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Commissioner, if you want to give him time to talk to his client, we could hold it for 30 days. It's totally at your discretion.
Sure. I'll if you need to get back to your client, then I can make a motion to obey for 30 days.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Then I will, barring any other comments, then I will just make a motion to obey item 33 for an additional 30 days till, when is the specific date for?
September 12th.
September 12th.
All right, there's a motion on the floor for abeyance for 30 days to the September 12th Planning Commission hearing. Please cast your vote. And Commissioner Rogan?
Aye.
Thank you. And that motion carries.
Okay, thanks.
And sir, maybe you could reach out to Commissioner Kasama before the next meeting, just to go through some of those details.
I'll put my client before you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 34, 23-0340 VAR1, applicant Oric LV GP LLC, owner United States of America, for possible action on land use entitlement project request to allow 14-foot tall retaining wall heights where 6 feet maximum is allowed, and an overall wall height of 18 feet where 12 feet is the maximum allowed on the east side of Cliff Shadows Parkway, approximately 190 feet north of Novat Street, Ward 4. Staff recommends approval. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the subject site is an irregular shape and contains extreme topography issues that make development difficult. Due to these issues, staff is able to support the requested variance and is recommending approval. Please note additional letters of protest were received since publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners. My name is Tony Celeste, address 1980 Festival Plaza Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. As you can see from the overhead, the site is highlighted here in yellow. It is about 1.5 acres, kind of a pie-shaped property. It is on the west side of 215 along Cheyenne, where it curves into Cliff Shadow, and just west of Novat. This site probably looks very familiar to you. This is now the third time I'm before you within less than 12 months on this site. This has been originally approved last September or in October of last year for a mini storage facility. We think it's a great use, especially on a difficult topographical site, and kind of the unique nature of the size and look of the parcel. So we do appreciate that approval. Earlier this summer, I did come in with respect to along the eastern property line here. We initially, on that original approval, had about a 25-foot retaining wall combination system through there. It was not the most efficient use of the area. Very cumbersome, difficult to build, and expensive. What we did was push the building back a little bit farther to the east so that the building itself could also act as the retaining wall. So that was approved earlier this summer. As part of that, we have always shown on our civil improvement plans or development plans additional retaining walls to hold up to essentially bring up the driveway at grade level of Cliff Shadow Drive, as well as on the south portion to hold up the parking lot area. Unfortunately, those did not make it into our land use application. So this is hopefully the third and final time I'll be before you with respect to that. So we are asking in these areas highlighted in red to increase our retaining wall on our side above 6 feet. Again, we have the severe slope, and it is to essentially bring our drive aisles, driveways in, and parking lot up to the grade of Cliff Shadow Road in here. It's about a 20-foot, maybe more than that, 25-foot drop from Cliff Shadow to our east property line. To help better illustrate this, especially on what is our north property line here, you can see right here is existing retaining wall on the condominium project. Ours is right here in white. We're basically stair-stepping it down. As you get to closer to the Cliff Shadow, you can see the retaining wall actually becomes almost flush with that grade. This is a little bit out of this sidewalk. It does not just dump into an area that doesn't exist. You can see right here on our plans that it actually ties into the driveway here. We appreciate staff's recommendation of approval, agree with all the conditions, more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone want to be heard, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to turn this over to the Planning Commission. Commissioner Kasama.
Hi, yes,
Hello.
it's me again.
Yes,
so regarding this item, yes, we have seen it multiple times, and I do understand the need for the retaining. I am actually quite familiar with this parcel and its steep grade, and so this item before us is a very kind of technical adjustment for certain sections of the wall that's already been approved, and so I'm happy to make a motion to approve.
All right. Motion's on the floor for approval. Please cast your vote. Mr. Celeste, you agree to all conditions?
And I do agree to all the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Rogan?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, that item is final action unless appealed to the city clerk in 10 days.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
Thank you. Citizens' participation, number 37. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. No subject may be acted upon by the Planning Commission unless that subject's on the agenda and scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come to the podium, give your name for the record. The amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Good evening. Thank you for staying with us.
Oh, no problem. It's always exciting. My name is Jessica Lawson, 9725 Manheim Lane. I'm actually talking about the item that was number 21. It was tabled, but we just want to make sure we put a couple of things on the record. From what we can see, this planned development is not compatible or harmonious with the current or future plans for the development based on the form-based code guidelines for the community or the community's interpretation of the 100 plan. For 21A, for the transect zones number T4, N and MS to be transitioned into a T5N and a T5MS. There currently exists no transect that is going to support the density that is suggested on this site. We have no problems with the vacation of the alley. We see that that's going to be coming. That is number 21B. 21C is the variance. We see that they did reduce the number of stories from 60 to 41, but that still is excessive considering the actual neighborhood and Main Street corridor. We have a couple of more, which is going to be for D, which is 21D, motor vehicles backing up onto the public street. We would like to know where the additional trucks, because we see that the site plan has been changed, where the additional trucks that may have to queue are actually going to be queuing in the neighborhood. Regarding 21E, for the special use permit for the airspace, that is the one item that I won't be able to give more information on. 21F for the massage establishment, it is currently too close to our residential areas, our churches, and then is asking for us to be, this to be a 24-hour establishment. That is going to bring a lot of undesirables into our community that we would like to be able to, like the Planning Commission, to consider. When it comes to 21G, for the special waiver of the 19.9 form-based code that allows for the building of this density, we would like to know why that was considered. We're seeing that they're asking for this to just simply be disregarded. This form-based code was considered by our Planning Commission, and actually we're not sure how we're engaging with our commissioner, but we want to make sure that anybody who's coming in doesn't just decide that they want to play by their own rules when we have rules that are established in this neighborhood. Lastly, when it comes to the unrestricted gaming license, this is the 11th application for this gaming license. This is a critical engine that's necessary to get our community back up. It is a catalytic property that can actually bring jobs and a new development to our community. So we would please ask that at the very least, if there is going to be a continuation of this license, that shovels have to be in the ground within the year. We see that that they have not only broken promises to our community, but they have actually come up here multiple times and talked to our city council and said the shovels would be in the ground immediately. They're asking for all of this stuff when they could have actually had this done 5-10 years ago. So we want to make sure that if there's any development that's coming into our neighborhood, that they're held to the same standards as they would be in any of your districts, and that's all.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. Vice Chair Cherry.
Through the chair, if I could quickly make a comment on item 24. It talked in the staff report about the district that is supposed to be promoting film, fashion, virtual gaming adjacent to the arts district. It was adopted in 2016 or 2017. And I mean, I've been down there for quite some time, and I haven't seen a film house, a fashion house, or a virtual gaming place. And I don't think it's fair to staff, like, being put in a position where they get applications and, they have to deny because the mandate is to do that. And 7 years later, the city hasn't pushed to get some of those items in that area to kind of help prop it up. Similar to what was done in the arts district, there was a big effort in the arts district, and I think we're seeing the fruits of it today. So going on record, I think, and I hope the city, city hears it, to put some horsepower to prop up some of these districts to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say congratulations to Sherry Shoup on your new position. And can you remind me the position? Is it Fire Marshal? So you've been with us for quite some time, and glad to see you're being promoted and sticking with us in the fire department. So congrats on that. And if nobody else has anything, meeting is adjourned.